Well, it's over for the gruesome twosome. Harry and Meghan are homeless as King Charles wipes them off the royal map for good.
Has King Charles really erased Prince Harry and Meghan Markle from the royal map forever? Or is this just another explosive headline designed to grab attention? Behind the dramatic claims lies a story of family tensions, public controversy, and a royal divide that continues to fascinate millions around the world. Today, we're breaking down everything you need to know, and the details may surprise you. Before we begin, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and stay until the end because this story gets even more interesting as we go. For years, few members of the British royal family have generated as much attention as Prince Harry and Meghan Markle. Once viewed as the modern face of the monarchy, the couple appeared to represent a new era for the royal family. Their wedding attracted global attention. Millions watched their public appearances, and many believed they would help shape the future of the institution. But fast forward a few years, and the situation looks very different. Today, headlines are claiming that King Charles III has effectively wiped them off the map for good. It's a bold statement, one that has sparked intense debate among royal watchers, media commentators, and fans across the world. But what exactly does it mean? And is there any truth behind the dramatic wording? To understand the current situation, we have to look at how the relationship between Harry, Meghan, and the royal family evolved over time. The turning point came when Harry and Meghan stepped back from their roles as senior working royals. Their decision shocked many people and triggered one of the biggest royal controversies in modern history. Supporters argued that the couple wanted greater independence and privacy. Critics claimed they were abandoning royal responsibilities. Either way, the decision marked the beginning of a new chapter, one that would eventually create even greater distance between the couple and the institution they once represented. Then came the interviews, the documentaries, the memoirs, and a series of public revelations that kept royal family tensions in the headlines. With each new disclosure, speculation grew that the relationship between Harry and several senior royals had become increasingly strained. Royal commentators often point to one major issue: trust. When private family matters become public conversations, rebuilding relationships can become extremely difficult. And according to many observers, that challenge continues to affect the relationship today. Now let's return to the headline that has everyone talking. When reports claim that Harry and Meghan have been wiped off the map, they generally aren't suggesting that the couple has disappeared from public life. Far from it. Harry and Meghan remain among the most talked about figures connected to the royal family. Instead, the phrase usually refers to their reduced role within the monarchy itself. Over time, the royal family's public focus has increasingly centered on working royals, those actively carrying out official engagements and representing the crown. As a result, Harry and Meghan naturally appear less frequently in royal planning, official events, and long-term institutional discussions. To some commentators, this is simply a practical reality. Others interpret it as a deliberate signal. And that difference in interpretation is exactly why the story continues to attract so much attention. What makes the situation particularly fascinating is how divided public opinion remains. Some people believe Harry and Meghan made the right choice by prioritizing their personal lives and building a future outside royal constraints. Others feel that their departure, and the events that followed, damaged relationships that may be difficult to repair. Because of these competing viewpoints, nearly every development involving the couple becomes headline news. Every appearance, every interview, every reported royal decision, every rumor about family reconciliation. The public remains deeply invested in what happens next. And perhaps that's because this story is about much more than celebrity gossip. At its core, it's about family. It's about loyalty. It's about tradition versus independence. And it's about what happens when personal choices collide with centuries-old institutions. For King Charles, the challenge is particularly significant. As monarch, he is responsible not only for family relationships but also for the long-term stability and public image of the monarchy itself. Every decision is scrutinized, every public appearance is analyzed, and every reported disagreement becomes international news. That's why even relatively small changes can trigger dramatic headlines suggesting major consequences. But there is another layer to this story that often gets overlooked. The monarchy is constantly evolving. Each generation faces different challenges. Each monarch must adapt to changing public expectations. And every institution has to consider its future direction. Some royal experts believe that recent developments reflect a broader effort to streamline and modernize the monarchy. If that's true, then discussions about Harry and Meghan may be connected to larger questions about how the royal family will operate in the years ahead. Who will take on key responsibilities? Which members will represent the institution most prominently? And what will the monarchy look like for future generations? These are major questions, and they extend far beyond any single headline. Still, the emotional aspect of the story cannot be ignored. Many people continue to hope that the divisions within the family can eventually be resolved. Others believe the differences have become too significant. At this stage, no one outside the family truly knows what the future holds. What we do know is that public interest remains enormous. And every new report adds another chapter to a story that has captivated audiences around the world for years. So, has King Charles really wiped Harry and Meghan off the map forever? The answer is far more complicated than the headline suggests. The reality appears to involve changing roles, evolving priorities, and an ongoing separation between the couple and the institution they once served. Whether that distance is permanent, or whether future reconciliation remains possible, is a question that only time can answer. But one thing is certain: the story of Harry, Meghan, and the royal family is far from over. And the next developments could be some of the most significant yet. One reason this story refuses to disappear from the headlines is that every new royal development is viewed through the lens of the ongoing relationship between Prince Harry, Meghan Markle, and King Charles III. Whether it's an official royal event, a family gathering, or a major announcement from Buckingham Palace, people immediately ask the same question: what does this mean for Harry and Meghan? That question has fueled countless headlines, theories, and debates. Some royal commentators believe the separation between the Sussexes and the royal family has now reached a stage where both sides are focused on completely different paths. On one side stands the monarchy, an institution built on tradition, duty, and continuity. On the other side are Harry and Meghan, who have spent recent years building independent projects, media ventures, and charitable initiatives outside the royal framework. The contrast couldn't be clearer. And that's exactly why many observers believe reconciliation has become increasingly complicated. Not necessarily impossible, but certainly more difficult than it once appeared. One factor often mentioned by royal analysts is time. The longer a disagreement continues, the harder it can become to repair. Years have passed since Harry and Meghan stepped away from their senior royal roles. During that period, numerous interviews, documentaries, public statements, and media reports have added new layers to an already complex situation. As a result, many royal watchers believe trust remains one of the biggest challenges facing any potential reunion. And trust, once damaged, can take years to rebuild. But here's where the story becomes even more interesting. Despite all the speculation, there are still people who believe a future reconciliation could happen. Why? Because royal history is filled with unexpected developments. Families argue, relationships change, and situations that once seemed impossible can eventually improve. Supporters of this view argue that family bonds can sometimes overcome even the most public disagreements. After all, beyond the titles and media attention, these individuals are still family members connected by decades of shared experiences. However, others remain skeptical. They point out that the royal family operates differently from most families because every disagreement unfolds under intense public scrutiny. Millions of people analyze every photograph, every appearance, every statement, every reported conversation. That level of attention creates pressures that few families ever experience. And those pressures can make reconciliation far more complicated than outsiders realize. Another important aspect of this story is the future of the monarchy itself. Many experts believe King Charles is focused on ensuring long-term stability for the institution. His responsibilities extend far beyond any individual relationship. He must consider public confidence, constitutional responsibilities, and the future direction of the royal family. Because of that, decisions are often viewed through an institutional lens rather than a personal one. Some commentators argue that what appears to be a rejection of Harry and Meghan may actually reflect a broader effort to define the monarchy's future structure. In other words, the focus may be less about personal conflict and more about clarifying roles and responsibilities. Of course, that interpretation remains a subject of debate. And debate is something this story never seems to lack. What's particularly fascinating is how differently people view the same events. One group sees Harry and Meghan as individuals who chose independence and personal freedom. Another sees them as former senior royals who walked away from important responsibilities. Some sympathize with their challenges. Others sympathize with the royal family's position. And because opinions remain so divided, every new development generates fresh controversy. That's one reason headlines continue to use dramatic phrases like humiliated, snubbed, or wiped off the map. Those phrases attract attention. They spark emotional reactions. And they encourage people to click, watch, and debate. But the reality is often far more nuanced than the headline itself. The truth is that Harry and Meghan remain globally recognized figures. Their influence in media and public discussions remains significant. At the same time, the royal family continues to move forward with its own priorities and responsibilities. Both realities can exist simultaneously. And understanding that complexity is essential if we want to look beyond sensational headlines. Still, one major question remains unanswered. What happens if there is a major family event in the future? Would we see a public reunion? Would tensions ease? Or would the distance remain? At this point, nobody outside the family knows for certain. And that's precisely why public fascination continues. People are naturally drawn to stories involving family conflict, personal struggles, and the possibility of reconciliation. Those themes are universal. Whether you're a royal supporter or not, they resonate with human experience. As we look ahead, it's likely that speculation will continue. New reports will emerge. New theories will circulate. And every royal development will be examined for clues about the future relationship between Harry, Meghan, and the rest of the family. But until something changes dramatically, much of the discussion will remain exactly that: speculation. For now, what we can say is this: the relationship appears distant, the paths appear separate, and the future remains uncertain. Yet history has repeatedly shown that unexpected developments can occur when people least expect them. And perhaps that's why the world continues watching so closely. As we reach the final chapter of this story, one question continues to dominate conversations among royal watchers around the world. What does the future hold for Prince Harry and Meghan Markle? After years of headlines, controversies, interviews, and speculation, many people feel as though they have followed every twist and turn of this royal saga. Yet despite the endless media coverage, the truth is that nobody outside the family truly knows what is happening behind closed doors. Public appearances can tell part of the story, but they rarely reveal the complete picture. That uncertainty is one of the reasons this story continues to attract so much attention. Every new report sparks fresh debate. Every royal event raises new questions. And every statement is analyzed for clues about what may happen next. Some observers believe the distance between Harry and the royal family has become so great that a return to any meaningful royal role is unlikely. They point to the years that have passed, the public disagreements, and the separate lives both sides now lead. From this perspective, the future appears clear. Harry and Meghan will continue building their own path while the monarchy moves forward with its own priorities and responsibilities. However, others believe it would be a mistake to completely rule out the possibility of change. History has shown that family relationships can evolve in unexpected ways. Situations that once appeared impossible have often shifted over time. Emotions cool, circumstances change, and people sometimes find common ground where none seemed possible before. Supporters of this view argue that while Harry and Meghan may never return to the exact position they once held within the royal institution, that does not necessarily mean every bridge has been permanently burned. They believe there is a significant difference between holding an official role and rebuilding personal relationships. The royal family has experienced challenges throughout its long history, and many of those challenges seemed overwhelming in the moment. Yet the institution endured. That is why some commentators continue to suggest that future family milestones, important events, or changing circumstances could eventually create opportunities for improved communication. Whether that happens remains uncertain, but the possibility is enough to keep the discussion alive. Another factor that cannot be ignored is the changing nature of public opinion. Public perception is rarely fixed. Over time, attitudes can shift dramatically. Individuals who were once heavily criticized can later receive sympathy, while those who enjoyed widespread support can face new scrutiny. Harry and Meghan have experienced both sides of that reality. Their supporters view them as figures who chose independence and personal freedom, while critics argue that their actions contributed to ongoing divisions. Regardless of which perspective people hold, there is little doubt that the couple remains among the most recognizable public figures in the world. Their names continue to generate headlines, discussions, and enormous public interest. At the same time, the monarchy itself faces the challenge of adapting to a rapidly changing world. Modern audiences expect greater transparency, greater accessibility, and greater relevance from public institutions. As a result, the royal family must constantly balance tradition with modern expectations. That balancing act will likely influence many decisions in the years ahead, including how relationships within the family are viewed by the public. Perhaps the most important lesson from this entire story is that reality is often more complicated than headlines suggest. Phrases like humiliated, snubbed, or wiped off the map create powerful reactions because they present events as simple and dramatic. But real life is rarely that simple. Behind every headline are human beings dealing with personal relationships, family responsibilities, public expectations, and enormous pressure. The situation involving Harry, Meghan, and the royal family is no exception. While headlines may suggest finality, history often reminds us that very few stories are ever truly finished. Circumstances evolve. Perspectives change. New chapters emerge when people least expect them. That is why predicting the future with certainty is nearly impossible. What seems permanent today may look very different several years from now. As this story continues to unfold, one thing remains undeniable. The world is still watching. Whether people support Harry and Meghan, support the monarchy, or simply follow the story out of curiosity, interest remains extraordinarily high. The fascination comes from more than royal titles or public appearances. It comes from the universal themes at the heart of the story: family, loyalty, conflict, forgiveness, identity, and the challenge of finding one's place in the world. Those themes resonate with people everywhere, regardless of their views on the royal family. And perhaps that is why this story has endured for so long and why it continues to generate such strong reactions.